There are many hard moments in parenting, but for most parents, nothing dysregulates quite like the moment one sibling hurts another. It's the moment where your thinking brain disappears and your survival system takes over. Your chest tightens, your breath gets shallow, and muscles brace. And suddenly, you're not just responding to behavior, you're trying to protect more than one child at once. Everything you understand about nervous systems, compassion, co regulation, and PDA suddenly feels out of reach. You might know why your child is doing what they're doing. You might understand this behavior comes from survival stress or a need to equalize. And still, your body reacts as if something has gone terribly wrong, because in that moment, it has. In the aftermath, many parents are left with a heavy, sinking feeling in their gut. This is unfair. I failed both of my kids. I couldn't protect one child enough, and I couldn't accommodate the other either. It feels like a no-win situation, one that leaves your nervous system stuck, braced, and questioning everything. So today we're going to look at what gets triggered in these intense sibling dynamics and how to help your nervous system move through both the moment and the aftermath with more regulation, clarity, and self-compassion. So let's begin. So many of the parents that I work with tell me that this is the moment they dread the most, right? A child hits or pinches or spits on or throws things at or verbally attacks a sibling. And then perhaps it's the younger child, they cry, and then your heart drops into your stomach. Okay. You might even hear yourself thinking, oh, he's having a hard time. And yet something inside you snaps anyways, right? In your mind starts saying, this is not right. They can't do this. This is unacceptable. So I've felt a version of this myself, even though I have only one child. Okay, I remember a time when my son had a younger, smaller cousin over. And there have been many times like this, okay? But I'm giving you this one example. At one point, he yelled and swore at her, okay, and even threw something at her. And instantly, my nervous system flooded. Okay, I felt a jolt through my body, a surge of energy that said, protect now. Okay, she was smaller, more vulnerable, clearly distressed. Okay, and at the same time, I knew that if I corrected my son harshly or publicly, he's PDA autistic with OCD, right? That if I corrected him harshly or in front of others, his nervous system would just escalate and he would feel misunderstood, shamed, or abandoned, and things would likely get worse. Okay. So I felt frozen in those moments. If I stepped in strongly, I worried about what my son would take in about himself. And even worse, that he would escalate even more and the matters would get worse, right? But if I didn't step in, I felt like I was failing to protect the younger child and it was my duty, right? Every option felt wrong. I was stuck between two competing responsibilities. The felt sense that it was my job to protect the younger child and the felt sense that it was also my job to de-escalate and regulate my son so that things didn't spiral further. Okay. This is an internal bind, right? It's a real internal bind. It's holding two urgent opposing needs at the same time. And this often caused me to freeze in place, okay, which happens to many parents I know. And underneath the freeze, I could feel anger building, right? Hot, tight buzzing in my body, like the pressure was building. Do something, right? I noticed my mind starting to see my son as the aggressor, the perpetrator. And I felt pulled in multiple directions at once, trying to accommodate everyone, knowing safety had to come first, and also knowing the cost of that choice wouldn't be small. Okay, this internal bind is real, right? There are no good options, and it feels like there's only trade-offs. And that is exactly what parents of multiple children, especially those parenting a PDA child who equalizes a lot, they describe this to me again and again. So I feel you, I hear you, and I've experienced this in moments with, other cousins and friends who have come over. Okay, so after moments like these, parents often walk away feeling completely wrecked. They tell me, I failed both kids, I didn't protect the vulnerable one enough, I couldn't stay patient or understanding with the child who was dysregulated, I became louder, harsher, or more reactive than I wanted to be. And what lingers isn't just exhaustion, okay, over these kinds of circumstances. It's a heavy mix of anger, okay, anger at the situation, right? Guilt, shame, grief, resentment, and a deep sense of unfairness of that these things, keep happening and you can't seem to fix them or change them. Okay, so many parents carry a quiet belief in their bodies that something is fundamentally wrong, either with them and their parenting or with their family. When in reality, they are just parenting inside an impossible bind. Okay, so to understand why this moment is so hard, makes sense that it's so hard, but let's understand why it's so hard. Let's slow it down and let's look at what gets triggered inside you, the parent. Okay, so in moments like these, our attention often goes straight to what we should do differently, right? What strategy will stop this? What tactic will prevent it next time? Okay, this is where every parent goes at first, searching the internet, trying to find a way to fix this problem. Okay, and that is an urgency that comes from survival. So that's your survival system in action trying to find a solution, right? Because it's trying to regain control of the situation because you feel so out of control and there's all these emotions being triggered underneath. Okay, but these moments rarely resolve through just strategy alone. Okay, what they require is a lot of clarity, like clear thinking in those moments, creativity, right? To find a creative solution that could work, and a lot of presence. Okay, survival system is not presence, right? Regulation is presence. So this starts by understanding what is getting triggered inside of you and working with it. And then when you can bring more safety and regulation back into your own nervous system, even an impossible bind becomes more workable, right? Because clarity comes on board and creativity comes on board, and then confidence comes on board as well, and choice as well. So because, and once parents understand why their nervous systems react the way it does, then also shame loosens its grip, right? And then real choice becomes possible again. So let's understand what gets triggered. Okay. Number one, we have this biological protector response. Okay. This is nervous system science. This is where we understand that when one child hurts another, the parent's nervous system detects real danger. Okay. So it's not like you're just getting dysregulated for no reason, right? This isn't imagined threat and this isn't misinterpretation. So you're not doing anything wrong here, right? It's a true cue that danger is here. Okay. And then, of course, when your system feels like this could get dangerous, or it's already dangerous, then fight energy will start to mount automatically without your conscious awareness, right? It will mount and your system will want to go into action to stop the harm. Okay. And so you're going to feel this as your voice is going to get louder, your body's going to be moving faster, your chest is tightening, a sharp urgency is taking over. Okay. So I want to say that this is not always dysregulation, although it can be layered with dysregulation. It just can be a pure fight response to create safety. Okay. So it's the biology of the survival system that works very fast when it detects a real threat, too. And so your nervous system is doing exactly what it was designed to do, protect, right? So let's just take a moment to normalize this, right? Your child, one of your children is dysregulated and equalizing against the other and attempting to like do some sort of harm or aggressive action. And it is very normal. Your system's going to go into a fight response. Okay. So let's normalize that. That is expected. Okay. You are allowed And it makes sense that this protection response comes out. And you are not bad or wrong for having this automatic protection response. And nor are you supposed to stay really calm when you're watching someone else get hurt. And, that's kind of like impossible. Um, but over time, okay, the work isn't about eliminating this response. It's about learning how to hold that protection energy with enough regulation on board so that it doesn't spill into dysregulation like rage or shaming or like being too physically aggressive, right? Or even your own terror or disconnection. Okay, but in the moment itself, the presence of this protection fight energy makes sense. So first let's normalize it and 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 really understand that this is a normal like reaction and there's nothing wrong with it, but we want regulation on board with it. And we'll get to the solutions after. But let's go into triggering number 2. What's getting triggering inside of you, right? Okay, so we have this fight response, that's normal. But then there's trauma that's layered underneath that protection response that then can intensify that fight response, right? So for many parents, this protector response is amplified by your own past trauma. Okay. You may carry memories in your body of being harmed as a child, witnessing violence or bullying. Okay. Your own sibling trauma that you may have had, and moments when no one protected you, okay? Or that you saw somebody not being protected, okay? So when one of your children hurts another of your children, this present moment reaction that you're having to like fight and create safety is compounded by these past experiences that are getting triggered in you. So then your nervous system reacts like there is much more at stake than just what's happening right now. So really in these moments, sometimes you aren't only protecting your child, okay? You're protecting a younger version of yourself. And that's why this reaction can feel so instantaneously overwhelming and far bigger than the situation than the situation maybe needs. Okay. This is when like rage comes out, right? Or some intense aggressive energy. Okay. Because there's trauma underneath that's getting triggered too. Okay, so number 3 reasoning why these moments are so triggering is that there's this no choice bind, right? You feel like you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. Oh my goodness, I cannot tell you how many times I have felt this way. Stuck between what my child needs and what another person in the room needs. Okay, so in these moments, parents often feel profoundly trapped, right? I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. There's no good choices. So if I protect the sibling firmly, then my PDA child may feel misunderstood or abandoned and then escalate, right? And if I stay gentle to avoid escalation, the sibling feels unsafe. If I intervene too strongly, then I worry about traumatizing the one child and even the other, right? Through vicarious trauma of watching it. If you have to intervene really strongly and and hold the other child or something, right? And then if I don't intervene strongly, then I feel morally responsible, right? And fear that the sibling will be traumatized anyways. Okay? So there are a lot of binds in this. So your nervous system reads this as there are no good choices and there is no escape, right? And so oftentimes the nervous system reads no good choices as no choice. So in your system, it often feels like, I have no choice. I have no choice. And there is no escape from this. Okay, so then what happens is that your system will go into a freeze at first. Your body may go still or your mind may go blank and time feels suspended. But then your system doesn't want to stay there. So it's followed by a surge of energy to do something, anything to stop the threat. Okay, so feeling trapped with no good options or no choices is one of the strongest danger signals the nervous system knows and takes in. And when your system perceives entrapment, it will often swing to one of two extremes. Okay, either it will freeze and shut down, leaving you feeling helpless and immobilized, or it will launch into a rage in an attempt to protect at all costs. Okay, so the key is not to make these moments disappear, but to recognize when you've entered this trap state and gently help your nervous system feel that there are choices. Okay, so even if none of them feel good, even if the choices are between shitty and shitty, right, which it often feels that way, restoring a sense of choice helps immensely because it interrupts the spiral into rage or collapse. And it helps you feel like then you can do something about it, even if the choice isn't great. And you can respond with more regulation when choice is on board instead of being overtaken by the survival response. Okay, number 4 reason why these moments are so triggering is that your child becomes the perpetrator in your mind. Okay. So over time, we have many experiences like this with our kids, right? So over time, our, this is a real nervous system dilemma that we have as parents, right? That when harm is happening, the brains, and it happens often, the brain starts to organize itself around seeing danger. And in that moment, we see our child, right? We automatically view the child who is hurting the other child through a very familiar mental model that all of us have. It's one that says someone who hurts others is bad, they're unworthy, they deserve punishment, they need to be controlled. Okay, some flavor of that. We all have that programming and conditioning inside of us. We all have that mental model inside of us. And those mental models don't just interpret the behavior, they shape what your nervous system perceives. Okay. So, how you perceive your child is based on the mental model that's activated right now. And that's the way you're seeing your child. Okay. So, these mental models that we carry, right, unconsciously, they can turn your child in that moment into a big cue of danger to your brain and body. And once your system is perceiving danger, then compassion goes out the window, right? Because regulation goes out the window, not because you don't care, but because safety now has taken priority. And under stress, these models can rule how we see our child in the moment. And under chronic stress, they become the lens we start seeing them through more of the time. Okay, so this is where the nervous system and PDA framework becomes essential, right? Not to excuse harm, but we need to restore accuracy and have the perspective that really embody the perspectives. Okay, not just think it from our mind, but really embody the perspectives that equalizing behaviors arise from survival mode, where the child's not feeling safe. Okay, and that power does equal safety for these kids, right? And so it really isn't cruelty, it's more like desperation. Okay. So understanding this doesn't mean allowing harm or removing boundaries. It means keeping your protective response from turning into rejection. Okay. Because we know our kids, when all of a sudden we have this hate energy towards them, they feel rejected and they escalate even more. Okay. So when we challenge the old mental models and begin adopting new ones based on nervous system accuracy and neuroscience, then we create enough space for regulation to return, right? And for real choice to come back online. In those moments, you can see, oh yeah, there goes my mental model, seeing it this way. Maybe I can let go of that framework and step into the framework that I want to. Okay, number 5 reason why it's so triggering in these moments is that there is this crushing belief that parents hold that I'm not doing my job as a parent. I cannot tell you how many times I hear this, right? I'm not doing my job as a parent. And this belief sits at the center of many of these intense reactions. And parents often carry an unspoken internal rule that sounds like, I'm supposed to protect the vulnerable. I'm supposed to meet my child's needs. A good parent wouldn't let this happen. This is a tough one, right? Because, like, anybody would say there's truth to that, right? You're the parent. You're supposed to protect your child as much as you can. Okay, so when sibling harm occurs, the nervous system quickly draws painful conclusions like, I failed. I'm not doing this right. I'm letting everyone down. Okay. So, this belief doesn't just create distress, it pulls the nervous system into a shame based survival loop. Okay. And when we feel bad about ourselves as parents and get stuck in that energy, the system often swings between two extremes, right? Trying to control the situation harder in an effort to stop the pain and prove we're doing it right, or dropping into shutdown, collapse, and helplessness, feeling like we're failing at parenting or even at life. Okay. So neither of these states bring more safety or clarity, right? They keep the nervous system cycling in threat, making these moments feel heavier, more charged, and harder to recover from. Okay. Number 6 reason why these moments are so triggering. These moments are loaded, right? Number 6 is guilt, grief, and rage at the unfairness. So I hear this all the time too, right? Guilt pours in, and guilt for not stopping it sooner, guilt for not guilt for exposing the sibling, right? That you left them in a situation that they were exposed to this, guilt for reacting harshly to the other sibling. Then grief follows closely behind, right? Grief for the sibling's experience, grief for the family you imagined, grief for how hard this is. Okay, and often underneath it all, there is rage too. Why is this all on me? Why do I have to hold everyone's nervous system? Why are there no good choices? Okay, these feelings are rarely spoken out loud, but they are incredibly common and they come into this situation, right? And is part of all of the triggering of what makes it so hard. Okay, so let's pivot now to working with these triggers so that they can soften over time, so that the situation doesn't become so loaded, right? And they don't leave you feeling like trapped, failing, or like there's no good options. Okay, so the goal here is not to eliminate these moments or make them easy. It's to help because they're not easy when you're in these situations. They're just not, right? But it's to help your nervous system move through them with more safety on board, more capacity on board, right? So, in a sense, it feels like you can handle the challenge with greater ease, even though if the situation is not easier, because you're not getting hijacked by all this stuff that's getting triggered underneath. Okay, so number one thing that you can do is you're going to have this protector response. Can you allow it? So allow the protector response to be there, but keep safety on board too, right? So we've already named that going into a protection-based fight response when one child is hurting another is expected and often necessary. So can it be okay to let that truth land? Right? Needing to protect does not mean you are a bad or dysregulated parent. It means your nervous system is responding to a real safety cue. Okay, so rather than suppressing this response, the first step is to become aware of it and allow it to be here. Oh, of course, this reaction is here. Someone is being hurt. My nervous system wants to protect. Okay, so the key is not to get rid of the protective energy, but to be with it without being taken over by it, right? Energy is mobilizing for a reason, right? To create safety. So, can we unblend from the intensity of the reaction, right? This is what I call unblending, being with the reaction to create just enough space to notice the response without it fully taking you over. You want to take action from that energy, but you don't want to take dysregulated action from that fight energy. So allowing the response doesn't mean acting it out, in an intense way. It means letting safety and regulation come online alongside this energy so that you could take action that you need to take, but with more presence on board. Okay. And sometimes that action is going to need, some sort of intensity or some sort of physicality to it. Right. And it's not something that we want to do, but to create safety, sometimes that is necessary, but we don't want it to be like this antagonistic. We want enough safety on board with it and presence on board with it so we can do it as safely as possible. So what I find is when we allow a reaction to be there, right, then it begins to soften, okay, and we can be with it. But when we fight it, it intensifies. If we say we fight that intense reaction inside, I'm not supposed to be that way, I'm supposed to be calm, and we're fighting it, it just adds more fight energy to the mix. And then it can quickly turn antagonistic or shaming. Okay. So safety still comes first, right? Sometimes quick action is absolutely necessary, but how protection is delivered matters. So when it comes from grounded presence rather than panic or rage, then our children are less likely to encode shame or abandonment, right? And repair becomes much more possible afterwards, right? Because in a sense, you're feeling this intense energy inside, you're feeling your child's intense energy inside, you're mixing your regulation with it, and you're bringing that to the situation, and everybody feels that regulation mixed in with the fight energy, and then your children's nervous system have a chance to feel safe in the face of their own fight energy too, okay? So it does have a ripple effect. Okay, so number 2 thing that you can do to help this triggering is to restore a felt sense of choice. This is so important. The nervous system needs choice to feel safe. Okay, so even when no option feels good, restoring some choice, some sense of choice really matters. So can it be okay? So the first step here is, can it be okay that there are 2 really hard choices? Okay, so this is what I work with so many parents on. Can it be okay that there are 2 really hard choices here, right? Instead of feeling like there are no choice, there are 2 choices, but they're 2 hard choices, right? So you might anchor into, okay, these choices are awful, but I'm choosing the least harmful one right now. Okay. And then also that, okay, I can protect now, and maybe it feels like I have to protect now, but then I can repair later. Okay. So there are choices. Or one child may feel hurt and I can support them through that. So the choice becomes that even if one child gets hurt, which inevitably happens, right? In some way, shape, or form, somebody's feelings get hurt, or maybe one child gets physically hurt. But okay, now the choice becomes that I can support them through that. Okay. So instead of going to feeling like we're stuck, we're trapped, this keeps happening, there's no good choices, right? We want choice to come on board in some way, even if they're not good choices, if it doesn't feel like they're good choices, there's still choice. So choice doesn't mean a perfect outcome like we would, we hope for and we would like. It means that your nervous system isn't trapped in failure. Okay. Okay. So number 3 is updating context and meaning over time. So context is another thing the nervous system needs to feel safe. Context is the who, what, when, where, why, how. Okay, so if the nervous system has context of why this is happening, oh, I get it, this is expected, this is happening for this reason, then it feels safer. But many parents carry meanings like, this shouldn't be happening, this is unfair, I should be able to protect everyone, if I can't, I'm failing, right? So if that's the context and meaning we're bringing in, then we will stay dysregulated in these situations. Okay. So it's really important to notice, like, what meaning making are you making in this situation? So ask yourself that. What am I believing right now about myself? What am I believing about this situation, right? Because if the meanings stay unconscious, the nervous system stays stuck in grief and shame. Okay. But when we gently name the meanings, shine light on them, and then we update those meanings, not to deny reality, but to meet reality with a meaning that's more accurate, right? And more reflection of truth, then the nervous system can begin to move out of stuckness and into more understanding and more flow. Okay. So this includes allowing truths like, okay, sibling conflict happens in families. This is expected. This is part of the journey, of life. So can that be there? Or this is not a sign of parental failure if you couldn't protect one of the siblings, right? It's not a sign of parental failure. And then PDA behaviors arise from nervous system threat. Okay, so can you take that one in deeply? Okay, and then the reframe that many parents find both challenging and relieving is, can this be a part of the sibling's life experience because they are supported through it? Okay, so first of all, can we allow that this is a part of life, right? Hardship alone doesn't create trauma, but hardship without support does. And of course, we don't want our kids to go through hardship. None of us do, right? The grief and the pain we take on when we see their suffering. And yet we've all gone through suffering and pain, right? And that's part of the reason why we don't want them to suffer, because then it triggers our own pain inside, right? But it is a part of life. So can we allow that, right? And know that at least you are there supporting your child through it. So when a sibling is protected, believed, soothed, and repaired with, then their nervous system learns that difficulty can be survived with connection and support. Okay? And your presence changes how these moments are encoded. Okay, so number 4, always repair with all kids involved and even repair with yourself. Okay, so rupture is inevitable, right? In nervous system intense homes and in every home. Okay, and repair is what builds resilience. So, can it be okay to let this truth land? So, even when you had to make hard choices, when you protected one child over another, or when you couldn't protect in the way that you wish you had, right? Repair is what teaches your children something essential, that no matter what happens, we can come back to connection and support is still here. Okay, so repair doesn't erase what happened, it helps the nervous system metabolize it, right? So it doesn't stay stuck. So when repair is present, children learn that moments of disconnection and fear or hurt don't mean that the relationship is lost. They mean that support is coming and support is there. Okay. So repair with the sibling who was hurt can include validating their true experience, reassuring safety, offering age appropriate context for why the other child hurt them, right? Giving them a voice to say what they need to say, reaffirming that you are there to protect them. Okay. And that you'll do the best that you can to protect them. And sometimes like it's inevitable, right? That you will not be able to protect them, but then you'll be there with them afterwards, right? To hold them through that experience. So this helps their nervous system feel seen and held rather than alone with the experience. And then repair with the PDA child or the child who, hurt the other sibling, that can happen once regulation returns, right? So we can reflect to that child that their behavior came from a survival response in order to help reduce shame. And then we can also restate boundaries if needed, without threat or punishment. And we can offer safer routes to power control or release. So there's a lot in this, which I don't get into in here, but there's a lot in what you can do with the child who's more aggressive outside the moments and changing the external circumstances, right, to some degree. And sometimes you have to do that, like separate both children for enough time so there's not, and give the one who's equalizing enough one-on-one attention to fill their power bucket, so that they don't then take it out on the other child, right? Okay, so repair with yourself matters too. Okay, so this is important. We want to name the grief and how hard this is for you. Release the shame about not doing it perfectly and offering yourself compassion for being in what feels like an impossible position. Okay, your nervous system needs repair just as much as your children's. And nervous systems grow through rupture and repair, not perfection. Okay, so hold on to that line. Nervous systems grow through rupture and repair. So can there be space that this is here and that's okay? Okay, so number 5, I'm going to offer you a broader lens if this helps, okay? Because this helps me a lot. It's has helped a lot of parents. So, some parents find it supportive to hold a broader perspective that life includes challenge and growth often comes through difficulty. Okay? So, of course, we don't want our children to be hurt and traumatized. I get that. Okay? But on the other hand, there is like a bigger picture to all of this life experience. And I personally believe that we each come into this life with lessons to learn and experiences to grow through. Okay, so I believe that we choose our life experiences to go through, okay, so that we can learn and grow from them, and our children do too. Okay, and we kind of contract in. This is like the soul perspective, right? We contract in to have this experience with these other souls to have this human experience. And we know we're going to be triggered by them and we're going to work on ourselves and learn and grow from them. And so siblings are included in that too. Okay. So I offer you this because it can help when you really feel stuck in this situation and when you're really feeling like hard on yourself for not protecting the more vulnerable child. Okay. So this lens, it doesn't erase grief and it doesn't minimize harm and it doesn't replace protection. It simply offers context when despair threatens to take over. Okay. It offers another layer of context and meaning. Okay, so I offer this to you because it could help. So you don't have to hold this belief for it to help, okay? It's just an invitation and one that has helped me deeply as I've grieved my own child's suffering in many ways. And it helps to know that there is always meaning and purpose to this pain for everyone involved. Okay, so this does feel like an impossible role at times, right? Being the parent in the middle of this bind. So when sibling harm happens, it doesn't just activate your child's nervous system, it activates yours, as we've said, right? And then protection comes up, fear comes up, guilt, grief, and responsibility, and it all collides at once. And there is no perfect way through this. Okay. And I want you to know you are not failing because this is hard. This is hard because you are holding multiple nervous systems at the same time, and that's not an easy job. Okay, so the work is not preventing every rupture. The work is protect as much as you can, have context, right? Work with what's getting triggered inside of you, repair with your kids, shift meaning, and grow your capacity over time to handle this with greater ease. Okay. So your family is not broken because it is complicated, and you are not doing it wrong because you are human. And although your brain may want to label these experiences as good or bad, like this is good and that's a bad thing, that's happening. If we can loosen our grip on those labels, right? Don't label anything as good or bad. Then we can shift from this is bad and I'm failing to this is a complex human experience that can be allowed to exist and it can be worked with. Okay. And when we do this, the nervous system softens and more clarity, more choice, more compassion, and more regulation becomes possible. So if this helped you, please comment, please share with other parents who could benefit from this messaging too. Thank you.